Hi guys, I'm Emily Schweikert, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the difference between animal welfare and animal rights. So, my objectives today are to identify your personal stance of animal welfare and animal rights, to describe the characteristics of the two, and to determine which organizations are classified into which category, and then explain the importance of recognizing between the two, and then finally summarizing the differences. So before we get into what animal rights is and what animal welfare is, I have a quick eye-side test for you, if any of you have ever done that before. So, real quickly, there's going to be 5 options, and just choose whichever one that you think you sided with better, and at the end, you'll figure out if you sided more with animal rights or animal welfare. So, using animals to benefit ourselves is morally right, or is morally wrong. Our interests are always more important than the interests of the animals, or we should not invariably overrule animal interests for human interests. We should not cause unnecessary pain or death on animals, or we should not inflict pain or death on animals. We should treat animals as humanely as convenient to us, or we should always treat animals humanely. We should make stronger animal protection laws, or we should abolish all animal use. So, does everyone have a general stance of whichever side they think they side with more? Okay, so on the left, if you had more points that lined up with on the left, you would be considered from an animal welfare point of view, whereas on the right, you would be siding with more of the animal rights. So now, quickly, just to say what the difference between the two are. Animal welfare is human responsibility that encompasses all aspects of animal well-being, including housing management, treatment and research facilities, and all those sorts of things. Whereas animal rights is more of a philosophical, ethical viewpoint that they're saying do not exploit animals at all for any human use. So a lot of times people use these two terms interchangeably, and it's not accurate, and that can result in a lot of social and individual arguments between people, and that's why it's important to recognize and know the difference between the two. So just to go over the basics of the two different beliefs, animal rights wants to ban all exploitation of animals, and they're saying that humans have no right to use animals whatsoever. Now, this may seem pretty obvious in things like research, eating meat, hunting, testing on animals, but it also spans to include things like service dogs, pets, horses, dog shows, anything that you may not necessarily think, oh, that's using animals, but that is animal rights activist point of view, that is using animals for human benefit, where, like I said before, that's not in line with their beliefs. Another thing that animal rights really value is sentience, and that is the capacity to experience pain or pleasure. And the question with animal rights is not whether an animal experiences pain or pleasure, because according to them they do, but whether or not that we as humans it's morally okay for us to knowing that they experience displeasure or pain when they're being used for animal use, that it's okay to do so, because according to animal rights, we should not take control over animals at all in order to benefit ourselves. Again, I guess I've been using the term activist or radical. That's sort of the term that for an animal rights activist, as opposed to, I'll get to animal welfare later. And some examples of animal rights organizations are PETA and the Animal Liberation Front. If you don't know, PETA stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and the Animal Liberation Front, in 2002, it was actually determined by the FBI, was actually called by the FBI a terrorist group. So if that gives you any more idea of what an animal rights organizations are, their platform is. Animal welfare is definitely more on the side of we can use animals for human benefits, but that we need to control. We need to control the use so we don't necessarily take advantage of them or treat them inhumanely. So animal welfare the purpose is to ensure humane treatment and prevent cruelty. Like I said, it's not to say, no, we can't use animals. It's to say we can use animals. Let's just make sure we do it responsibly. Animal welfare, animal welfare, the main platform it uses is the 5 freedoms, and those 5 freedoms are, the 5 freedoms are freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom to express their normal behavior, and freedom from fear and distress. Animal welfare is more of a governmentally imposed regulation on animals and their use. In 1966, the Animal Welfare Act was passed to specifically control the use of animals, but also not condemning that we use animals and eat them and use them for research and use them as pets, enjoy them as pets. Like how animal rights use the term activist, animal welfare, the term advocate would be more appropriate, just because, like I said, instead of an activist like having picket signs or rallying for like government laws and everything, animal welfare advocates want to express the need and responsibility that we have to animals to protect them, especially since animal welfarists are saying that it is okay to use them just as long as we do it responsibly. Some examples of animal welfare advocates are the RSPCA and the ASPCA. The RSPCA is the Royal Institute for Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It's in Europe. And the ASPCA obviously is the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So the bottom line of this is that animal rights activists are willing to break the law to supposedly save animals, whereas animal welfare advocates want to make laws that will protect animals. I'll put quotes around save because, like I said, like PETA and the Animal Liberation Act, and Animal Liberation is their sort of front is, well, we're willing to go bomb up places just so we can get the animals out of there and such things like that, and that's not necessarily saving anyone. Some implications to society. Like I said before, these terms are used interchangeably without thinking about it, mistakenly used interchangeably a lot, and that is a big source of disagreement and argument. If someone says, oh, I don't support animal welfare because PETA and because they think that we can't use animals even as pets, that is a false statement, because it's not animal welfarists that are saying that, it's animal rights. Animal welfare, on the other hand, is just the humane protection of animals, and just making sure that they are treated as humanely as possible, even though we are still using them. That also leads to inappropriate associations, because like I said before, people associate the term animal welfare with PETA, where that's not technically accurate, and then that can also lead to public criticism and resistance, and then that leads to more resistance from people to necessarily support animal welfare acts. The quick quiz I have in front of you, if you wouldn't mind just really quickly going through and saying whether you think each statement would be from an animal rights or an animal welfare point of view, and then we'll go over and see if you guys got them. Everybody good? Anyone need more time? Cool. Okay. So First one, everyone should be vegan. What do you think of animal rights? Rights. Pet ownership is an absolutely abysmal situation brought about by human manipulation. Rights. And this is actually a quote from Ingrid Newkirk, who is the founder of PETA. So if that gives you any idea of PETA's stance compared to animal welfare protection. Oops. Welfare. Conducted and rescue united efforts of pets and displaced owners after 9/11. Obviously after 9/11, when the towers came down, there were animals and people everywhere, and that was one of their main sources of aid that they could give, was just reuniting people and their pets. Originated in the 1970s from drawing comparisons between discrimination against humans and discrimination against animals.
Welfare.
Rights. So, yeah, I don't remember. I think it was. I don't remember his first name, but it was Singer. Singer was the one that originally had the thought of animal rights, whereas animal welfare has actually been a topic that's much more. What's the word? It's been around a much longer time than the current animal rights activists, just like rights activists for other topics, like other groups as like minorities and women and all that sort of thing as well. Last one focuses on a single issue campaigns like foie gras, which is goose liver, for those of you who don't know, and fur, and endorse compassionate consumption of grass-fed beef and cage-free eggs.
Welfare.
Those are my questions. Any questions? And those will ask. Yeah.
So basically, you're not a whack job, you're for welfare.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why
Yes.
I thought this was an important topic, because everyone thinks that oh no, I can't support animal welfare because that's PETA and they're crazy, and but there's a difference between liking pets and liking animals, and just promoting their humane use rather than their exploitation.
I think it's so weird that drawing a comparison between, discrimination against humans and discrimination against animals when, even for example, the Native Americans were eating animals.
Right.
It's just different ways and where, the way that they processed everything. And even
Yep.
when they killed the animal, it was respect.
We've been using animals are obviously a big part of our society and just the way we function, and that's why we are, partly why we are as developed the way we are. Our bodies are used to that meat, our bodies are used to the milk and eggs and proteins from animal products, but then people are like, no, we can't use animals because all animals are equal to humans, and that's not how our society functions. Yes.
Another example of how crazy PETA is that they would literally go in people's backyards if animals were in their doghouse chained to it, not in a bad way, but if they were chained to their doghouse, they would set them free. They would go in people's yards and break them free. So, thought I'd share.
My dog would have bit him. So.
Yeah. So one of the things you're talking about when they live in bombs somewhere,